Hey everybody! As part of my new series, Al Puglisi talks trains. Al Puglisi and friends talk trains. John's a new friend of mine and allowed me to visit his layout, John Sethian. And we're going to have an interesting discussion because we're kind of both on the same page with the hobby in a lot of different areas. And we're going to have a discussion about O scale and three rail scale, high rail scale. It's going to be interesting. So check out this discussion. Do not turn it off. Well, John, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, Al.
And you're very active. Tell us, you're active in the NMRA and
I
very.
am active in an MRA. Um, Part of it is self-serving because I'd like to show NMRA that O scale two rail in particular, is a very active model hobby.
Right.
And I also like to make contributions to it. I give talks. I write articles for our local newsletter. I'm a member of the Potomac division, and I get things out of it. I enjoy the magazine. I enjoy meeting people, going to different layouts.
Right.
I'm of the attitude that you can learn anything, all sorts of things from all scales and all modelers. Just sit and
Yes.
talk to them. So
Yes.
expand your mind type of thing. And generally, most of the people who come and visit my layout are HO scalers just because that's the dominant scale. And when they walk out saying, gee, I didn't know you could do this with O scale, and I feel, all right, I may have accomplished something.
Yes. And why don't you, let's just spell some of the, if you had to pick four of the biggest or three or four of the biggest not issues, misconceptions about O scale.
Okay, if you're talking about O scale two rail, I'm glad you asked this question. Myth number one is you got to have a lot of space.
Right.
You need a gymnasium.
Right.
My layout is 21 by 31 feet, and that's in an L.
Right.
I can run most all pieces of equipment. I can run all my pieces of equipment on 50-inch radius.
Okay.
Everything else, there are a couple I can run all the way down to 36-inch radius. So space is not a problem. Obviously, you keep those curves a little bit hidden,
Right.
simply because it's just not that scenic.
Right.
But it doesn't matter the number of rails you're running.
Right.
I have one 288-inch radius. Yes, you heard that correctly.
Oh, wow.
Main sweeping curve.
Okay.
Where the trains get to show off in all their glory. So space is not a problem.
Right.
Availability. I've heard people say you can't get stuff in O scale two rail.
Right.
That's just simply not true. I model the Pensy, so one of the first things I did was see what O scale models have been made for Pensy, O scale two rail models, and the answer is everything except that I could find the E2B and E2C electrics, experimental electrics. You can get everything else. I told that to an HO scale friend of mine. He says, well, that's Pensy. Everybody models Pensy. To which I countered, okay. I called up a friend of mine who is a B&O modeler, and he went through the list. And it took him a while, but he found a couple of things, B&O pieces of equipment that were not made in two rail O scale.
Right.
If you get it in the B&O, it's a popular railroad, but nobody models it. I'm sure you can get anything everywhere.
Right.
You have to expand your mind.
Right.
You're not going to go into a hobby shop and buy something brand new.
Right.
But a number of things have been made over the years.
Right.
Number three, O-scalers don't have layouts. They have unpainted brass locomotives sitting on bare plywood with an unpainted cinder block back wall or backdrop, and they are more obsessed where each and every valve and rivet is on the locomotive than anything else.
Right.
Well, I'm not going to address that last one. That's a matter of preference.
Right.
But I could name easily 20 fully scenic O-scale layouts just like mine, where people have cared about everything. The structures, the scenery, getting the trees right, getting the buildings right, street lights, etc. It's just plain not true.
And one of the things that we talked about earlier is there's an awful lot of high rail, and we can have an argument, is it really scale? Is it really correct? We're not going to go there. High rail scale equipment is beautiful, MTH and Lionel. And like you said, there's some of it on this layout that was converted to two rail, and it's incredibly beautiful. And there are a ton of high rail scale modelers that are, you know what? I want to step the bar up. I want realistic scenery. I want realistic buildings. I want my cars weathered. I want my stuff weathered. And it's a huge portion of the hobby that a lot of old timer, don't want to mention names or anything, but there's a lot of folks out there that ignore these folks, and that's got to end. That has got to end.
Well, first of all, I agree with you. Two rail or three rail, as far as I'm concerned, is a matter of choice.
Right.
Your layout, do what you want to do.
Right.
If it weren't for the huge growing three rail, as you say, scale or high rail part, I don't like the word high rail. I
Right.
prefer the word scale.
Right.
Segment of the
Three
hobby.
rail scale.
Three rail scale.
Right.
I wouldn't be able to get half the stuff I have and then convert it over to two rail.
Right.
So it's a blessing.
Right.
I don't like making a distinction between the two.
Right.
First of all, O scale, be it three rail or two rail, is a minority scale. We don't need to divide it into factions.
Right.
You know?
Right.
You know, we don't even need to carve out the Proto 48.
Right.
That's one more unnecessary division.
Right.
Let's get the whole thing to grow together.
Exactly.
Let's show other modelers or people who haven't gotten into model railroading yet what can be done with O scale. The whole part of the hobby will grow, and that can do nothing but good.
Right.
So I support it.
Right. And I'm the part of this channel is because of that.
Yeah.
And I saw you in an interview. We won't mention when or where, but it's important that for years, oh, they're the toy train people. We're not talking to them. Oh, if the minute they hear the word three rail, they don't talk to them. And even the NMRA, I've heard in the past, might have ignored some of that, but that's not the case.
That is changing. They have awarded master model railroaders to three railers.
Good,
and,
good.
I'm not going to mention names.
Right.
One of them is a very good friend of mine.
Right, good.
He's been on the NMRA calendar with his three rail layout.
Good.
He's been
that's good.
in model railroader.
Right.
And actually, two of them. One of them has been in railroad model craftsman. It's first-rate, high-quality stuff, and there's a lot to be learned from them.
Yeah, and it's good. That's what I'm getting. I'm not nothing derogatory said. The past might be the past.
But,
it's the past.
Yeah.
We're talking about the now.
Right. There's always going to be a segment that wants my way or the highway.
Right.
That's fine.
Right.
I personally think that isn't a part of the hobby that's growing.
Right.
And I think that's where the complaints about the hobby not growing is coming from.
Right.
But the rest of it, I think, is growing, particularly because as people get older, they may see some advantages with a larger scale.
Right.
Like you can see it, and
Right.
you can easily manipulate with your hands.
Right.
They also might see the attractiveness of making very highly detailed models, buildings, even trees. You can do that in O scale, and it shows.
Right.
So,
Right.
I think the future is bright.
Yes.
I don't listen to the people who say that it's not.
Right.
Because I think they're stuck in a particular mode of operation.
I agree. And we were talking about getting older again, having trouble putting stuff on the track, having trouble, seeing it, having trouble working on it. And this is a great opportunity to say, if I want to take my retirement, my trains into my retirement, maybe I have a huge collection of HO or N scale or whatever scale. Do I really need all that? And it could also be an opportunity to maintain the same size railroad, but change scales. And me personally, I'm not getting out of HO scale. I'm doing both, but I'm blessed to have the room to do that. But I will tell people, and even David Vaughn has said this in the past, you can sell your HO stuff, not give it away, but you can sell it and you can fund your O scale, because we talked about this earlier. I think we're in a transition phase right now where there's a lot of fantastic buying opportunities to get into O scale 2 rail or to get into O scale. It's a great time to do that.
There's a couple other factors here. First of all, it is going, with the advent of 3D printing and modern additive technology, it will become less expensive to make higher quality trains that also have prototypical specific details.
Right.
Before you had to pay $200,000 for a plastic mold. If you wanted the cab door someplace else, good luck. Now you can do that sort of thing.
Right.
The other thing is that people say they're not young people coming into the hobby. That's not been my experience. Certainly my grandkids and their friends have come over and watched this layout and want to get into trains. I know that my cousin My cousin's son, who's age 14, got his first train set for Christmas. He's moving to a house. He's going to build it.
Okay.
I know that when people come up from the NMRA, they ask if they can bring a kid. I said, sure,
Absolutely.
of course.
Right.
And guess what? I let these kids run this train.
Right.
First of all, they're a whole lot better to control than I am because
Right.
it fits with their, what they've grown up with.
Right.
But I think that's how you expand it.
Yep.
Show what could be done. Get out there. There are a couple of local O-scale groups around here. The National Capital Trackers come to mind. There's one in Richmond. Sorry, Peter, I can't remember the name. But they set up all these modular layouts at shopping malls and Christmas events and stuff like that. And they draw huge crowds.
Wow.
That can't help but bring in new people to the hobby.
Right. So part of, like I said earlier, part of the purpose of my channel is to try and get rid of some of this division. Everybody's welcome, whatever scale you're in, N scale, HO, but I just, me as an outsider, new to O scale, I see a division. I see, they're breaking up a small minority to begin with. And I'm seeing a division that has got to end, because if it ends, it will exponentially grow O scale, in my opinion.
Let me modify what you said slightly. They're not breaking up a scale. What they're trying to do is carve out and show their aspect, their way of modeling is more attractive.
Right.
I think in general, O scale is more homogeneous than people would like to think it is. Or, sometimes we want to find fights to pick.
Right.
They're not necessary. They're not there.
Right.
So,
Wow.
I even let three-wheelers run my layout.
Yes. It's all about having a great time.
It is about having a great time.
And one of the things that got me is the physical presence of the locomotives. You can hear the clickety clack. It's just a physical presence of these things.
Yeah, O scale has mass.
Yeah.
You can't duplicate that. You can feel the layout board shake a little bit as it comes by.
Yeah.
You're moving heavy machinery.
I've had people say that they better make sure their long truss bridges are strong enough, because when you have an Allegheny, an O-scale Allegheny cross, that's what, 35 pounds or something?
Well, a GG1 weighs 12 pounds.
Okay.
Each of those cars weighs about 2 pounds, something like that.
Okay.
My GG1 is pulling 12 cars up a 2.5% grade.
Ooh.
Okay. That's machinery moving, folks, and that's one of the reasons I like it.
Wow. Well, thanks so much for giving us. I know we could spend all day talking about a million different topics, and we'll probably have other interviews with you. And John, I really appreciate you letting me come over, and boy, I've had a blast today.
Thank you very much. You didn't break anything.
No.
And it was a pleasure talking to you, Al. It really was.
Thanks.
Okay.